Hi, and welcome to the training video for Reaching Consumer Organizations. I'm Jeff Wilbur, Technical Director of the Online Trust Alliance Initiative at the Internet Society. First, we want to make sure that you understand that there are a series of training videos for our IoT Trust by Design campaign. There's an intro video, and if you haven't seen it, we would recommend that you look at it first. It talks about IoT, gives an introduction to the trust framework, and who our target audiences are. But we do have others as well, and you can see these on the right side of the slide. So why are you here? Maybe you're someone who's already involved heavily with IoT, and you have influence in that area with manufacturers, with policymakers, with technologists, and you want to learn what we're trying to accomplish in IoT. Maybe you're a chapter member who's been involved with Internet Society for years, and you want to know, what are we doing about IoT and how can you help? Or maybe you're just a general fan of the internet, or you're curious about IoT and you want to understand more. Regardless of which category you fall in, welcome. We want to help you understand more about IoT, its risks, and how we can address them. So why are we all here? It's because billions of devices are being attached to the internet, and they're being thrown out into the market without sufficient security and privacy. And a bigger issue is that consumers don't even know about it. So what's the big idea here? Over the next few minutes, we want to talk about the role that consumer organizations can play in improving IoT security and privacy. For example, by integrating security and privacy criteria into their reviews, and how to address questions that you might get from them as you interact with them. We need your help with this influential group to raise awareness about the trust framework and how it can help improve security and privacy. We also want you to better understand the asks that we have for consumer organizations. And the payoff is big. We can have a huge impact if consumer organizations are advocating along with us to address security and privacy issues in IoT. This will both help us achieve our IoT campaign goals and ultimately help create a safer IoT and a safer internet for everyone. So let's get into this and talk about the actual role consumer organizations can play, how they can use the trust framework, and how to address questions you might get from them. So what is a consumer organization? Well, a general definition is that they are an advocacy group that has influence over consumer buying decisions. This can happen in a variety of ways, but some examples, especially in the product testing and review area, would include organizations like Consumer Reports in the US, Which in the UK, and Choice in Australia. And all three of those companies are members of Consumers International, which is a worldwide organization made up of consumer organizations in various countries around the world. So all of them are informing and educating consumers and testing on their behalf to help them make good choices for their products. So let's talk about the role that consumer organizations can play and how they use the trust framework to accomplish that goal. First of all, they need to become familiar with the framework itself, and you can see the link here on the slide. But the way they apply that framework can take various forms. First, we would like them to integrate security and privacy into their reviews and go beyond the basic price and feature functionality that you usually see. This is especially important in the IoT space. Once that information is known, they can then promote products that have better security and privacy. And along the way, they can inform and educate consumers about best practices, whether it's a checklist of what to do to protect yourself in your home when you use these IoT products, or whether it's telling them which products are the safest to use. Consumer organizations can have a huge influence over the buying habits of consumers, and collectively, by informing consumers and raising awareness of IoT security and privacy risks, they can help put pressure on manufacturers to design better products and reduce the risks associated with IoT. So what's happening with consumer organizations and the trust framework today? Earlier in 2018, we announced a partnership with Consumers International, a membership organization that has more than 200 members in more than 100 countries. So they have huge reach through their member companies. We will be working with them to develop resources and programs to help consumers make informed buying decisions. So in general, we're encouraging all consumer organizations to incorporate privacy and security as part of their evaluation criteria and help us educate consumers on IoT security and privacy issues. So to help speed this along, we've actually developed some resources and checklists that consumers can use to better understand what's going on with IoT and to better protect themselves at home. But we expect over time that we'll be working with a number of organizations to help develop these resources and help consumers make better informed decisions. Given that we at the Internet Society have created a lot of expertise during the development of this framework, we want to help jumpstart this effort with consumer organizations to better educate consumers. And we've developed some checklists for consumers to both help them understand the risks associated with IoT security and privacy and what they can do to better protect themselves. So now let's talk about how you would answer some of the top questions you might get from consumer organizations about using the trust framework. We somewhat addressed this in other videos, but we do believe the comprehensive nature of looking at the entire system, as well as security, privacy, and lifecycle are very important. Many of the other frameworks only focus on one of those areas, or they might go deeper into specifications about how to test it. But all of these principles are important, and over time, we believe they should be incorporated into the testing and consumer education that might be done by consumer organizations. From the very beginning of development of this framework in 2015, we had in mind that you could translate each of these principles into measurable criteria for a certification or trust mark program. And that will evolve over time, the specifics that you would want to test against. So at any point in time, you would just map those to best practices in the industry and apply it to that principle. We addressed this somewhat in another video, but it is true that certain principles can have a bigger impact than others. We would recommend that organizations choose the ones with the top impact and kind of work their way down until they've integrated all the principles. A good example I used before was a hard-coded password, but in this case you might extend that and say, can you update the software? Is it shipping with known vulnerabilities? Is there a way to report those vulnerabilities? And all of those can have a huge impact on the security and privacy of products as they ship. The framework principles can be used in a couple of ways for this. One is using the list of principles as essentially a checklist for what consumers should be looking for in their products. Now, the problem today is a lot of that information doesn't get bubbled up to the top. So the better we can inform users about what's inside those products and what to look for, the better off we'll all be. The other is to translate them into specific criteria used in a trust mark or certification program, where you end up with a simple mark at the end that verifies that this product has sufficient security and privacy built in. So we've given you a bit of the history of the trust framework. We've also looked at what's inside it and how it's unique and different from other frameworks. And we've covered the common questions that you might get about the trust framework. So now we want to look at, what do you do with that? What are my next steps? Do I have resources that I can refer to learn more? And who should I or the people that I talk to contact if we have questions? So let's get you started as a trust framework ambassador. At your next meeting or conference, raise awareness of IoT, its risks, and how the trust framework addresses them. You can do this in all of your areas of influence. We have two main areas for you that host resources for more information on IoT. The first is internetsociety.org/IoT, where we have a number of papers and other resources, and it will be continually updated over time. We also have more details about the trust framework at the link shown here. You should also know that this is a first in a series of videos for our community. So we have others that go further into what the trust framework is, and then we have one specifically for each of the main audiences, reaching out to manufacturers and resellers, reaching out to policymakers, or reaching out to consumer organizations. So if you have an interest in any of those areas or want to learn more, you can reference those videos. Finally, if you have any questions or feedback for us about this information, please contact us via email at iot.info@isoc.org. Thank you for your time and attention. This ends the training on the Introduction to IoT and the Trust Framework. We look forward to hearing from you about the great interactions you've had in becoming an ambassador for the Trust Framework.